Fact 1. The Anunnaki and the development of agriculture and civilization. The rise of agriculture and the subsequent development of civilization in Mesopotamia are intrinsically linked to the perceived influence of the Anunnaki. While modern science attributes these developments to natural progression and human ingenuity, Mesopotamian mythology often credits the Anunnaki with bestowing the knowledge and skills necessary for agriculture, irrigation, and the establishment of organized societies. Exploring this connection provides insights into the Mesopotamian worldview and their understanding of the relationship between gods and humanity. Mesopotamia, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, witnessed the earliest known development of agriculture around 10,000 BCE. The fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers provided ideal conditions for cultivating crops such as wheat, barley, and lentils. This transition from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to an agricultural one allowed for the establishment of settled communities, the development of specialized labor, and the accumulation of surplus resources. The Anunnaki were often credited with providing humans with the knowledge and skills necessary to cultivate the land and manage water resources. In Sumerian myths, the goddess Nisaba, for example, was associated with writing, learning, and agriculture. She was believed to have taught humans how to measure fields, calculate yields, and keep records of harvests. Enki, the god of wisdom and crafts, was also associated with agriculture, particularly with the development of irrigation systems. He was believed to have provided humans with the knowledge of how to build canals and dams to control the flow of water and irrigate their fields. These divinely bestowed skills were seen as essential for the success of agriculture and the sustenance of human populations. The development of irrigation systems was particularly important in Mesopotamia, where rainfall was often unreliable. The ability to control the flow of water allowed farmers to cultivate crops even during dry periods, ensuring a stable food supply. The Anunnaki were also credited with establishing the social and political structures necessary for organized societies. They were believed to have created laws, established kingship, and organized labor. In the Atrahasis epic, the Anunnaki are depicted as creating humans to perform the arduous tasks of digging canals and cultivating the land. This suggests that the Anunnaki were seen as the organizers of human society, assigning tasks and responsibilities to different groups of people. The construction of monumental structures, such as ziggurats and temples, also required a high degree of organization and coordination. The Anunnaki were often credited with inspiring and guiding the construction of these structures, which served as centers of religious, economic, and political power. The development of writing was another crucial step in the development of civilization. The earliest known writing system, cuneiform, was developed in Mesopotamia around 3200 BC. Cuneiform was initially used for record keeping and accounting, but it was later adapted to record myths, legends, and historical events. The Anunnaki were often associated with writing and knowledge, and they were believed to have inspired humans to develop this essential skill. Nisaba, as mentioned earlier, was the goddess of writing and learning, and she was often depicted holding a stylus and a clay tablet. The development of writing allowed for the transmission of knowledge across generations and the creation of a shared cultural heritage. However, it's important to note that the Mesopotamian worldview differed significantly from the modern scientific worldview. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods were actively involved in human affairs and that they had a direct impact on the course of history. They saw the world as a divine creation governed by divine laws. While modern science explains the development of agriculture and civilization in terms of natural processes and human ingenuity, the Mesopotamians attributed these developments to the intervention of the Anunnaki. The connection between the Anunnaki and the development of agriculture and civilization reflects the Mesopotamian understanding of the relationship between gods and humanity. The Mesopotamians believed that humans were created to serve the gods, and that the gods provided humans with the knowledge and skills necessary to thrive. This relationship was based on a reciprocal exchange of services and blessings. Humans offered sacrifices and worshiped the gods, and the gods provided humans with sustenance, protection, and knowledge. The Anunnaki's role in the development of agriculture and civilization underscores their importance in the Mesopotamian worldview. They were seen as the creators and organizers of human society, responsible for providing humans with the tools and knowledge necessary to build a thriving civilization. This belief played a significant role in shaping the social, political, and religious institutions of ancient Mesopotamia. Fact 2. The association of the Anunnaki with a hypothetical planet called Nibiru. Understanding the nuances of Sitchin's claims and the counterarguments is essential to critically evaluating this aspect of the Anunnaki mythology. Sitchin's central argument revolves around his interpretation of Sumerian cuneiform texts, particularly those relating to cosmology and mythology. He claimed that the Sumerians possessed advanced astronomical knowledge, including the existence of a planet beyond Neptune with a highly elliptical orbit that takes approximately 3,600 years to complete. This planet, which he identified as Nibiru, is said to be the home of the Anunnaki. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki came to Earth around 450,000 years ago in search of gold, which they needed to repair their planet's atmosphere. They initially mined the gold themselves, but eventually created humans through genetic engineering to serve as their workforce. Sitchin's interpretation of Sumerian texts is based on his translations of cuneiform inscriptions and his understanding of Sumerian cosmology. He argues that the Sumerians had a sophisticated understanding of the solar system, and that their myths and legends are actually historical accounts of extraterrestrial events. He also points to certain artifacts, such as cylinder seals, which he interprets as depicting Nibiru in its orbit. However, Sitchin's interpretations have been widely criticized by scholars of Sumerian language and culture. Critics argue that his translations are often inaccurate and that he selectively interprets texts to fit his preconceived ideas. They also point out that the Sumerians did not have the same understanding of the solar system as we do today, and that their cosmology was based on a geocentric model, with the Earth at the center of the universe. Furthermore, there is no independent evidence to support the existence of Nibiru. Astronomers have searched for such a planet, but no evidence has been found. The laws of physics also make it unlikely that a planet with such a highly elliptical orbit could exist in our solar system without disrupting the orbits of the other planets. The mainstream scientific community generally dismisses the idea of Nibiru as a pseudoscience. Despite the lack of scientific and scholarly support, Sitchin's theories have resonated with many people. The idea of extraterrestrial intervention in human history is appealing to those who are skeptical of conventional explanations for the origins of civilization. The Nibiru myth has also been linked to various New Age and conspiracy theories, which often portray the Anunnaki as benevolent or malevolent beings who are still involved in human affairs. It's important to note that the Sumerian concept of Nibiru is not necessarily the same as Sitchin's interpretation. In Sumerian astronomy, Nibiru was associated with the planet Jupiter, which was considered a significant celestial body. The name Nibiru means crossing or point of transition, and may have referred to the point where Jupiter's orbit crossed the celestial equator. The association of the Anunnaki with Jupiter is consistent with their role as rulers of the cosmos and their connection to the celestial sphere. The controversy surrounding the Anunnaki and Nibiru highlights the challenges of interpreting ancient texts and the importance of distinguishing between historical fact and mythological interpretation. While Sitchin's theories have sparked interest in Sumerian mythology and the Anunnaki, it's crucial to approach his claims with a critical eye and to consider the evidence from a variety of perspectives. The association of the Anunnaki with Nibiru remains a controversial and largely unsubstantiated claim, but it continues to be a popular topic of discussion and speculation. The enduring fascination with this myth reflects the ongoing human quest to understand our origins and our place in the universe. Fact 3. The Anunnaki and their depiction in art and iconography. The Anunnaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian mythology, are frequently depicted in art and iconography. These representations offer valuable insights into how ancient Mesopotamians perceived these deities, their roles, and their relationships with humanity. Analyzing the recurring motifs and symbols associated with the Anunnaki reveals the evolving nature of their religious and cultural significance. Early Sumerian depictions of the Anunnaki are often symbolic and abstract. They are represented as divine beings, often distinguished by their headdresses adorned with multiple horns, a symbol of divinity and power. The number of horns typically indicated the deity's rank, with the most powerful gods and goddesses having the most horns. And Anu, the sky god and the chief of the Anunnaki, is often depicted with the highest number of horns. These early representations emphasize the Anunnaki's divine status and their separation from humanity. These anthropomorphic representations reflect a growing sense of intimacy between the gods and humans. The Anunnaki are portrayed as more relatable figures, capable of interacting with humans and influencing their lives. They are no longer simply distant and abstract beings, but rather active participants in the world. One of the most common motifs associated with the Anunnaki is the winged disc a symbol of divine power and protection. The winged disc is often depicted above the figures of the Anunnaki, representing their celestial nature and their ability to oversee and protect humanity. This symbol is also associated with the sun god Shamash, Utu, who is seen as a source of justice and righteousness. The winged disc later became a symbol of royal power and was often depicted on royal seals and monuments. The Anunnaki are also frequently depicted in scenes of creation and destruction. They are shown creating humans, building cities, and establishing laws. They are also shown unleashing floods, sending plagues, and destroying their enemies. These depictions reflect the Anunnaki's dual nature as both creators and destroyers, capable of both benevolence and wrath. In Babylonian art, the Anunnaki are often associated with the god Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon. Marduk is depicted as a powerful warrior god who defeated the primordial chaos and established order in the universe. He is often shown holding a spear or a sword, symbolizing his power and his ability to defend Babylon from its enemies. The Anunnaki are often depicted as Marduk's allies, helping him to maintain order and protect the city. In Assyrian art, the Anunnaki are often depicted as winged genies, known as Apkallu. The Apkallu were believed to be wise and benevolent spirits who served as advisors to the kings. They are often shown carrying buckets and cones, which were used in rituals to purify and protect the kings and their palaces. The Apkallu are also depicted as guardians of temples and sacred places, protecting them from evil spirits. The depictions of the Anunnaki in art and iconography reflect the evolving nature of Mesopotamian religion and culture. As societies changed and new ideas emerged, the way the Anunnaki were portrayed also changed. These representations provide valuable insights into the beliefs, values, and worldview of the ancient Mesopotamians. They also demonstrate the enduring power of art to shape and reflect religious and cultural identity. The analysis of Anunnaki iconography requires careful consideration of the historical and cultural context in which these images were created. It is important to understand the symbolic meaning of the various motifs and attributes associated with the Anunnaki, and to consider how these representations may have been interpreted by the people who created and viewed them. The study of Anunnaki art and iconography is an ongoing process, and new discoveries and interpretations continue to shed light on the complexities of Mesopotamian mythology and religion. Fact 4. The Anunnaki origin and meaning of the name. The term Anunnaki originates from ancient Mesopotamian cultures, specifically Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian mythology. Understanding the etymology and the cultural context is crucial to grasping their significance. The name itself is derived from the Sumerian god of the sky, and Ki, meaning earth. Therefore, Anunnaki can be broadly translated as those of royal blood, or those who came from heaven to earth. However, the meaning and role of the Anunnaki evolved over time and across different Mesopotamian civilizations. In early Sumerian texts, The Anunnaki were often depicted as the most powerful deities in the pantheon, responsible for creating the universe, establishing order, and determining the fates of humankind. They were considered the offspring of an sky god and Ki, earth goddess, embodying both celestial and terrestrial powers. These early Anunnaki were primarily associated with cosmic governance and divine authority. They were the ultimate lawgivers and judges, setting the standards for morality and justice. Their decrees were absolute, and their actions had far-reaching consequences for both gods and mortals. The concept of the Anunnaki as Mesopotamian civilizations evolved, the perception of the Anunnaki shifted. In Akkadian and Babylonian texts, the Anunnaki were often divided into two groups: the Igigi, celestial gods, and the Anunnaki, earthly gods. This division reflected a hierarchical structure within the divine realm, with the Igigi serving as attendants to the Anunnaki. The Igigi were responsible for tasks such as maintaining the celestial order, controlling the stars, and carrying out the commands of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, on the other hand, were more directly involved in human affairs. They were seen as the rulers of the underworld, the judges of the dead, and the guardians of the earth. The Epic of Gilgamesh, a prominent Babylonian text, provides further insight into the evolving role of the Anunnaki. In this epic, the Anunnaki are depicted as powerful but also flawed beings, capable of both benevolence and destruction. They are involved in the creation of the flood, which was intended to wipe out humanity due to their excessive noise and wickedness. This portrayal reflects a more complex and nuanced view of the Anunnaki, acknowledging their potential for both good and evil. The Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, further elucidates the Anunnaki's role in shaping the cosmos. According to this myth, the Anunnaki fought against the primordial chaos and established order in the universe. They created the sun, moon, and stars, and they divided the waters of the heavens and the earth. This act of creation was seen as a triumph over chaos, and it established the Anunnaki as the ultimate rulers of the cosmos. The Anunnaki were not always benevolent towards humanity. In some accounts, they are portrayed as demanding and capricious, requiring constant worship and sacrifices to appease their wrath. They were seen as the masters of humanity, and humans were expected to serve them without question. This portrayal reflects a more authoritarian view of the Anunnaki, emphasizing their power and control over human affairs. Over time, the Anunnaki's importance in Mesopotamian religion gradually declined. As new gods and goddesses emerged, the Anunnaki were relegated to a more peripheral role. However, their legacy continued to influence Mesopotamian culture, and their stories were passed down through generations. Even in later periods, the Anunnaki remained a symbol of divine power and authority, representing the ancient roots of Mesopotamian civilization. The study of the Anunnaki provides valuable insights into the religious beliefs, cultural values, and historical development of ancient Mesopotamia. By examining their portrayal in various texts and contexts, we can gain a deeper understanding of the worldview of the people who worshiped them. The Anunnaki were not simply mythical figures. They were an integral part of the Mesopotamian cultural landscape, shaping their understanding of the cosmos, humanity, and the divine. Fact 5. The Anunnaki and the Ziggurats, temples and power centers. Ziggurats, massive stepped pyramids constructed in ancient Mesopotamia, are inextricably linked to the Anunnaki. These structures weren't merely temples. They were carefully designed complexes that serve as centers of religious, political, and economic power, believed to be the earthly residences of the Anunnaki gods and goddesses. Understanding their construction, function, and symbolic significance is crucial to comprehending the Anunnaki's influence on Mesopotamian society. The construction of ziggurats was a monumental undertaking, requiring vast resources, skilled labor, and meticulous planning. These structures were typically built of mud bricks, which were readily available in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia. The bricks were sun-dried or baked in kilns to increase their durability. The ziggurats were constructed in multiple layers or terraces, with each layer smaller than the one below, creating a step pyramid shape. The outer layers were often faced with glazed bricks, which added color and visual appeal. The most famous ziggurat is the Great Ziggurat of Uar, dedicated to the moon god Nana, Sin. This ziggurat, built during the early Bronze Age, is a massive structure that dominates the landscape of Uar. It was originally about 64 meters high, with 3-step terraces and a temple at the summit. The ziggurat was carefully designed to align with the cardinal directions. The primary function of ziggurats was religious. They served as temples where priests and priestesses performed rituals, offered sacrifices, and communicated with the gods. The temple at the summit was considered the most sacred space, accessible only to the high priests and priestesses. The rituals performed at the ziggurat were intended to appease the gods, ensure the fertility of the land, and maintain the cosmic order. The ziggurats were also centers of economic activity. The temples owned vast tracts of land and controlled the production and distribution of goods. They served as storehouses for grain, textiles, and other commodities. The priests and priestesses managed these resources and oversaw the economic activities of the surrounding community. In addition to their religious and economic functions, ziggurats also served as centers of political power. The rulers of Mesopotamian city-states often used the ziggurats to legitimize their authority and demonstrate their piety. They would commission the construction or renovation of ziggurats as a way to show their devotion to the gods and their commitment to the well-being of their people. The ziggurats became symbols of royal power and were often decorated with inscriptions and artwork that glorified the rulers. The symbolic significance of ziggurats is multifaceted. As mentioned earlier, they represented a connection between the earth and the heavens, a bridge between the human and the divine. The step terraces symbolized the different levels of the cosmos, and the temple at the summit was believed to be the dwelling place of the god or goddess. The ziggurats also symbolized the cosmic mountain, a sacred place where the gods were believed to have created the world. This concept of the cosmic mountain is found in many ancient cultures and represents the center of the universe, a place of creation, renewal, and spiritual power. The Anunnaki were believed to reside in the heavens, but they also had earthly residences in the ziggurats. The temples at the summit were furnished with elaborate statues, altars, and other objects that were intended to honor the gods and provide them with a comfortable dwelling place. The priests and priestesses acted as intermediaries between the gods and the people, performing rituals and offering sacrifices on behalf of the community. The decline of the ziggurats coincided with the decline of Mesopotamian civilization. As new empires rose and fell, the ziggurats were often neglected or destroyed. However, their legacy continued to influence later cultures, and their architectural style can be seen in the pyramids of Egypt and the temples of Greece. The ziggurats remain a testament to the ingenuity, religious devotion, and organizational skills of the ancient Mesopotamians. They offer valuable insights into the worldview of a society that believed in the power of the gods and the importance of maintaining a harmonious relationship between the human and the divine. The Anunnaki, as the recipients of the ziggurats' reverence and the beneficiaries of their economic and political power, were central to this worldview. Their association with these monumental structures solidifies their place as pivotal figures in the history and mythology of ancient Mesopotamia. Fact 6. The Anunnaki and the concepts of kingship and law. The establishment of kingship and the formalization of law codes in ancient Mesopotamia are often attributed to the influence of the Anunnaki. These deities were believed to have bestowed the concepts of organized governance and justice upon humanity, shaping the structure of early Mesopotamian societies and laying the foundation for future legal and political systems. Examining the evidence for this connection reveals the complex interplay between religious belief, political ideology, and the development of civilization. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Anunnaki were considered the ultimate source of authority and the arbiters of justice. They were believed to have established the principles of order and fairness in the cosmos, and they expected humans to uphold these principles in their earthly societies. The concept of kingship was seen as a divine mandate, with kings ruling on behalf of the Anunnaki and enforcing their laws. The Sumerian king list, an ancient text that records the succession of rulers in Mesopotamia, explicitly states that kingship was lowered from heaven after the flood. This phrase suggests that the Anunnaki played a direct role in establishing the institution of kingship on Earth. The kings were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, responsible for maintaining order, protecting the realm, and ensuring the prologue to the Code of Hammurabi explicitly states that Hammurabi was chosen by the gods to establish justice in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evil, and to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak. The code itself is presented as a divine decree, with Hammurabi acting as the agent of the gods. The Code of Hammurabi covers a wide range of legal issues, including contracts, property rights, family law, and criminal law. It establishes specific punishments for various offenses based on the principle of an eye for an eye. While the code reflects the social and political norms of its time, it also represents an attempt to create a more just and equitable society. However, the influence of the Anunnaki on Mesopotamian law and kingship was not always straightforward. The kings were not simply puppets of the gods. They also had their own ambitions and agendas. They often used religion to legitimize their power and to consolidate their control over their subjects. The priests and priestesses who serve as intermediaries between the gods and the people also played a significant role in shaping the political landscape. They often exerted considerable influence over the kings and could even challenge their authority. The interpretation of the law was also subject to change over time. As societies evolved and new challenges emerged, the laws were modified and reinterpreted to meet the needs of the day. The Code of Hammurabi, for example, was not the first law code in Mesopotamia. It was preceded by earlier codes, such as the Code of Uarnemu and the Laws of Ashnuna. These earlier codes provide valuable insights into the development of legal thought in Mesopotamia. The connection between the Anunnaki and the concepts of kingship and law is not simply a matter of historical fact. It is also a reflection of the Mesopotamian worldview. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods were actively involved in human affairs and that they had a direct impact on the course of history. They saw the world as a divine creation governed by divine laws. By attributing the establishment of kingship and law to the Anunnaki, the Mesopotamians were reinforcing their belief in the divine origin of their civilization. This belief provided a sense of order and stability in a world that was often unpredictable and chaotic. It also legitimized the authority of the kings and the laws that they enforced. The legacy of the Anunnaki's influence on Mesopotamian law and kingship can still be seen in modern legal and political systems. The concept of the rule of law, the idea that everyone is subject to the law, regardless of their position or status, has its roots in ancient Mesopotamia. The idea that kingship is a divine mandate, while less prevalent today, has also had a lasting impact on the history of political thought. The study of the Anunnaki and their role in shaping Mesopotamian civilization provides valuable insights into the origins of law, politics, and religion. It also underscores the enduring human quest for order, justice, and meaning in the world. Fact 7. The Anunnaki in popular culture, from fringe theories to modern media. The Anunnaki, once confined to the realm of ancient Mesopotamian studies, have experienced a significant resurgence in popular culture, particularly in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. This resurgence is fueled by a variety of factors, including the proliferation of alternative history theories, the rise of the internet, and the enduring human fascination with ancient mysteries and extraterrestrial life. Examining the Anunnaki's portrayal in popular culture reveals how these ancient deities have been reinterpreted and adapted to suit modern sensibilities and anxieties. The primary catalyst for the Anunnaki's popularity in modern culture is the work of Zecharia Sitchin, whose Earth Chronicles series presented a controversial interpretation of Sumerian texts, claiming that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth and played a crucial role in human evolution. Sitchin's theories, despite lacking mainstream scholarly support, resonated with a wide audience, offering an alternative explanation for the origins of civilization and the mysteries of the past. His books have been widely read and have spawned countless websites, documentaries, and discussions dedicated to the Anunnaki. Sitchin's interpretation became the foundation for many subsequent narratives about the Anunnaki. The internet has played a crucial role in the dissemination of Anunnaki theories and information. Websites, forums, and social media platforms have provided a space for enthusiasts to share their ideas, discuss interpretations of ancient texts, and develop new theories about the Anunnaki. The internet has also made it easier for people to access information about Sumerian mythology and ancient history, fueling further interest in the Anunnaki. The relative lack of gatekeeping on the internet allowed for the spread of Sitchin's ideas and other science fiction often borrows elements of the Anunnaki mythology, incorporating themes of genetic engineering, ancient astronauts, and the clash between humans and extraterrestrial beings. In some science fiction narratives, the Anunnaki are presented as a warning about the potential consequences of unchecked technological advancement and the exploitation of natural resources. The Anunnaki have become a popular topic in the realm of conspiracy theories, often linked to themes of secret societies, government cover-ups, and the manipulation of human history. In these theories, the Anunnaki are sometimes portrayed as the hidden power behind global events, pulling the strings of world leaders and controlling the flow of information. Such theories often capitalize on anxieties about globalization, technological control, and the erosion of individual freedoms. While these interpretations are often far-fetched and lack credible evidence, they reflect a deep-seated mistrust of authority and a desire to understand the forces shaping the world. The enduring appeal of the Anunnaki in popular culture can be attributed to several factors. First, the Anunnaki mythology offers a sense of mystery and intrigue, providing an alternative explanation for the origins of civilization and the mysteries of the past. Second, the Anunnaki mythology taps into our fascination with extraterrestrial life and the possibility of contact with other civilizations. Third, the Anunnaki mythology provides a framework for exploring contemporary concerns about power, control, and the future of humanity. However, it's important to approach the Anunnaki's portrayal in popular culture with a critical eye. Many of the theories and interpretations circulating online and in the media are based on speculation and lack credible evidence. It's crucial to distinguish between well-researched scholarship and unsubstantiated claims, and to be aware of the potential biases and agendas that may be influencing these narratives. The Anunnaki's journey from ancient mythology to modern pop culture highlights the enduring power of myth to capture the human imagination and to provide a framework for understanding our place in the universe. However, it also underscores the importance of critical thinking and the need to distinguish between fact and fiction when exploring complex and often controversial topics. Fact 8. The Anunnaki and the different classes of deities in Mesopotamian pantheon, Igigi, Anunnaki, and beyond. The Mesopotamian pantheon was not a monolithic entity. It comprised various classes of deities, each with specific roles, responsibilities, and hierarchical positions. The Anunnaki were just one group within this complex divine structure, and understanding their place in relation to other divine beings, particularly the Igigi, is crucial for grasping the nuances of Mesopotamian religious beliefs. Examining the different classes of deities sheds light on the Anunnaki's specific functions and their interactions within the broader cosmic order. The most commonly cited distinction is between the Anunnaki and the Igigi. While both groups are often referred to as gods, their roles and status differed significantly. The Anunnaki were generally considered the senior deities, the rulers of the cosmos, and the ultimate authority figures in the Mesopotamian pantheon. They were responsible for creating the world, establishing laws, and determining the fates of humanity. The Igigi, on the other hand, were often depicted as the junior deities, the workers or servants of the Anunnaki. They were tasked with performing various labors, such as digging canals, maintaining the temples, and carrying out the commands of the senior gods. The exact number of Anunnaki and Igigi is not definitively known, and the specific members of each group varied, depending on the time period and the city. However, some deities were consistently identified as members of the Anunnaki, including in Anu, Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Ki, and Marduk. These deities held positions of great power and influence in the Mesopotamian pantheon. The Igigi, by contrast, were often depicted as a more anonymous group with fewer individual deities identified by name. However, some texts do mention specific Igigi, such as Nusku, the messenger of the gods, and Kaka, a minor deity associated with writing. The relationship between the Anunnaki and the Igigi was not always harmonious. As mentioned earlier, the Atrahasis epic describes a rebellion by the Igigi against their laborious duties. The Igigi, tired of digging canals and performing other physically demanding tasks, protested to the Anunnaki and demanded relief. This rebellion ultimately led to the creation of humanity, who were tasked with taking over the labors of the Igigi. The story of the Igigi rebellion highlights the hierarchical nature of the Mesopotamian pantheon and the potential for conflict between different classes of deities. It also reflects the Mesopotamian belief that labor was a necessary part of life and that even the gods were not exempt from it. In addition to the Anunnaki and the Igigi, the Mesopotamian, it's important to note that the classification of deities into different groups was not always clear-cut. Some deities may have been considered members of both the Anunnaki and the Igigi, depending on the context. Furthermore, the roles and responsibilities of different deities could change over time as new religious ideas emerged and old ones were reinterpreted. The Mesopotamian pantheon was a dynamic and evolving system, reflecting the changing needs and beliefs of Mesopotamian society. Understanding the different classes of deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon is essential for comprehending the nuances of Mesopotamian religious beliefs. The Anunnaki, as the senior deities, held a position of great power and influence, but they were not the only divine beings in the Mesopotamian cosmos. The Igigi, as the junior deities played an important role in carrying out the commands of the Anunnaki and maintaining the cosmic order. And the other deities, demons, and spirits added to the complexity and diversity of the Mesopotamian religious landscape. By studying the different classes of deities, we can gain a deeper understanding of the Mesopotamian worldview and their understanding of the relationship between gods and humans. Fact 9. The Anunnaki and the sacred marriage ritual, Hieros Gamos. The sacred marriage ritual, or Hieros Gamos, was a significant religious practice in ancient Mesopotamia, believed to ensure fertility, prosperity, and the continuation of kingship. This ritual, often involving the symbolic union of a king or priest with a goddess or her representative, was directly linked to the Anunnaki and their role in maintaining cosmic order. Examining the Hieros Gamos reveals the complex interplay between religious belief, political power, and the perceived connection between divine and human realms. The Hieros Gamos was not simply a symbolic act. It was believed to have real and tangible consequences for the well-being of the community. The union of the king or priest with the goddess was thought to ensure the fertility of the land, the abundance of crops, and the continuation of the royal line. The ritual was often performed during the New Year festival, a time of renewal and regeneration, symbolizing the reestablishment of cosmic order after a period of chaos. The specific details of the Hieros Gamos varied, depending on the city and the deity involved. However, the general pattern involved a procession, a ritual cleansing, a sacred meal, and a symbolic union between the king or priest and the goddess. The king or priest would often dress in elaborate robes and were symbols of royal power, while the goddess would be represented by a statue, a priestess, or even the queen herself. In Sumerian mythology, the Hieros Gamos was often associated with the goddess Inanna, Ishtar in Akkadian, the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Inanna was considered the patron deity of Uruk, one of the most important cities in Sumer. The Hieros Gamos was performed annually in Uruk, with the king of Uruk symbolically marrying Inanna to ensure the prosperity of the city. The text describing these rituals often emphasized the sensuality and eroticism of the union, highlighting the importance of fertility and procreation. The king's participation in the Hieros Gamos was seen as a way to legitimize his rule and to connect him to the divine source of power. By symbolically uniting with the goddess, the king became a representative of the Anunnaki on Earth, responsible for maintaining order and ensuring the well-being of his people. The Hieros Gamos also served to reinforce the social hierarchy. The king's role in the ritual highlighted his elevated status and his unique relationship with the gods. The priests and priestesses who participated in the ritual also held positions of power and influence in society. The ritual served to reinforce their authority and to legitimize their control over religious practices. The Hieros Gamos was not limited to the king and the goddess Inanna. Other deities and rulers also participated in similar rituals in different cities throughout Mesopotamia. For example, the god Dumuzi, Tammuz, was often associated with Inanna in the Hieros Gamos. Dumuzi was the god of shepherds and fertility, and his union with Inanna was believed to ensure the abundance of flocks and herds. The interpretation of the Hieros Gamos has varied over time and across different cultures. Some scholars see it as a purely symbolic act, representing the union of male and female principles or the cyclical nature of fertility and regeneration. Others see it as a more literal act, involving actual sexual intercourse between the king or priest and the goddess or a representative. Regardless of how it is interpreted, the Hieros, however, its legacy continued to influence later cultures, and echoes of the Hieros Gamos can be seen in other religious traditions. The study of the Hieros Gamos provides valuable insights into the religious beliefs, political structures, and social values of ancient Mesopotamia. It also underscores the enduring human fascination with the connection between the divine and the human realms and the quest for fertility, prosperity, and order in the world. Fact 10. The Annunaki and the significance of numbers in Mesopotamian culture. The Annunaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian cosmology and religion, are indirectly connected to the significance of numbers in Mesopotamian culture. The Mesopotamians, particularly the Sumerians, developed a sophisticated numerical system based on a sexagesimal, base 60 system, which influenced their understanding of the cosmos, timekeeping, and religious practices. While the Anunnaki weren't explicitly numbers themselves, the system used to understand the world and their place in it was intrinsically linked to the way they perceived the divine. Examining the Mesopotamian numerical system reveals how it was intertwined with religious beliefs and the Anunnaki's role in maintaining cosmic order. The Sumerians developed their sexagesimal system around the 3rd millennium BCE. This system, which used 60 as its base, was a significant advancement over earlier numerical systems and allowed for more complex calculations. The choice of 60 as the base is believed to have been influenced by astronomical observations, as 60 is divisible by many numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, making it convenient for dividing units into smaller fractions. The sexagesimal system was used for a variety of purposes, including measuring time, calculating areas and volumes, and keeping track of agricultural production. The Mesopotamians also used numbers to represent abstract concepts, such as the attributes of the gods. Certain numbers were considered sacred and were associated with specific deities. For example, the number 60 was associated with Anu, the sky god and the chief of the Anunnaki. This association reflected An's position as the highest authority in the Mesopotamian pantheon. The number 50 was associated with Enlil, the god of wind and storms, reflecting his power and authority over the natural world. The number 40 was associated with Enki, Ea, the god of wisdom and water, reflecting his intelligence and his control over the life-giving waters of the earth. The use of numbers in religious rituals and ceremonies further demonstrates the connection between mathematics and the Anunnaki. Certain rituals required specific numbers of offerings or prayers, and these numbers were believed to have a symbolic significance. For example, the number 7 was considered a sacred number in Mesopotamia and it was often used in rituals associated with the Anunnaki. The number 7 was associated with the 7 planets known to the Mesopotamians: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and it was believed to represent the totality of the cosmos. The Mesopotamian calendar, which was based on the cycles of the moon, also reflects the importance of numbers in their culture. The lunar calendar consisted of 12 months, each of which was approximately 29, 5 days long. The months were named after specific deities or festivals, and the calendar was used to regulate agricultural activities and religious observances. The Anunnaki were believed to control the cycles of the moon, and their movements were seen as a reflection of the divine will. The Mesopotamian system of weights and measures was also based on the sexagesimal system. The basic unit of weight was the shekel, which was approximately 36 grams. The mina was equal to 60 shekels, and the talent was equal to 60 minas. These units of weight were used for trading goods, calculating taxes, and measuring the value of precious metals. The standardization of weights and measures was essential for the development of commerce and the administration of the Mesopotamian state. While the Anunnaki were not directly numerical concepts, the Mesopotamian use of a sophisticated numerical system to understand the world and their place in it reflects the influence of religious beliefs on their daily lives. The association of numbers with specific deities, the use of numbers in religious rituals, and the reliance on mathematical calculations for timekeeping and administration demonstrate the deep intertwining of mathematics and religion in ancient Mesopotamia. This interconnectedness underscores the importance of the Anunnaki as central figures in a worldview where even abstract concepts like numbers were imbued with divine significance. Studying the Mesopotamian numerical system provides valuable insights into the intellectual achievements and the religious beliefs of this ancient civilization. It also highlights the enduring human quest to find order and meaning in the world through the use of mathematics and religion. Fact 11. The Anunnaki and the Afterlife. The Underworld Core. The Mesopotamians possessed a core was envisioned as a dark and desolate place, located beneath the earth. It was a land of dust and shadows, where the souls of the dead lived a meager existence, devoid of joy and pleasure. The Mesopotamians believed that after death, the soul, Giddim, would travel to Kor, often described as a journey across a river or through a gate guarded by terrifying creatures. There, they would be judged and assigned a place in the underworld. Ereshkigal, the goddess of the underworld, was the primary ruler of Kor. She was a powerful and fearsome deity associated with death, decay, and the mysteries of the afterlife. Ereshkigal was often depicted as a stern and unyielding figure, ruling over the underworld with absolute authority. Her consort was Nergal, a god of war, plague, and the underworld, who later became a co-ruler of Kor. The Anunnaki were also associated with the underworld. They were seen as the judges of the dead, determining the fate of each soul based on their earthly actions. However, unlike some other afterlife beliefs, the Mesopotamian underworld did not offer rewards for good behavior or punishments for bad behavior. All souls, regardless of their deeds in life, were destined to spend eternity in Kor, living a shadowy existence. The conditions in Kor were harsh and unpleasant. The souls of the dead were believed to be clothed in feathers and fed on dust and clay. They had no access to sunlight or fresh water, and they were constantly tormented by hunger and thirst. The only way to alleviate their suffering was for their living relatives to offer them food and drink through funerary rituals. The Mesopotamians believed that the living had a responsibility to care for the souls of their deceased relatives. They would regularly visit the graves of their ancestors, offering them food, drink, and other provisions. These offerings were believed to sustain the souls in Kor and to prevent them from becoming restless or vengeful. If the living failed to provide for the dead, the souls could become angry and return to haunt the living. The Epic of Gilgamesh explores the theme of mortality and the fear of death. Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is tormented by the knowledge of his own mortality and embarks on a quest to find immortality. However, he ultimately fails in his quest and comes to accept the inevitability of death. The epic reflects the Mesopotamian belief that death is an unavoidable part of the human condition, and that even the greatest of kings cannot escape the fate of the underworld. The Mesopotamian concept of the afterlife reflects their pessimistic view of human existence. They believed that life on earth was fleeting and that death was the ultimate end. The underworld offered no hope of redemption or reward, only a continuation of existence in a diminished form. This bleak outlook may have contributed to the Mesopotamian emphasis on living a good life and honoring the gods. By fulfilling their religious obligations and maintaining social order, the Mesopotamians hoped to ensure the well-being of their communities and to avoid the wrath of the Anunnaki. While the Anunnaki are often seen as creators and organizers of human society, their association with the underworld highlights their role as arbiters of death and the ultimate fate of humanity. Their connection to Kor underscores the Mesopotamian understanding of the limitations of human existence and the inevitability of mortality. Studying the Mesopotamian concept of the afterlife provides valuable insights into their religious beliefs, their worldview, and their understanding of the relationship between gods and humans. Fact 12. The Anunnaki and their depiction in art and iconography. The Anunnaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian mythology, are frequently depicted in art and iconography. These representations offer valuable insights into how ancient Mesopotamians perceived these deities, their roles, and their relationships with humanity. Analyzing the recurring motifs and symbols associated with the Anunnaki reveals the evolving nature of their religious and cultural significance. Early Sumerian depictions of the Anunnaki are often symbolic and abstract. They are portrayed as majestic and awe-inspiring figures, worthy of reverence and worship. As Mesopotamian art evolved, the depictions of the Anunnaki became more anthropomorphic with human-like bodies and features. However, they retained their divine attributes, such as horned headdresses and symbols of power. They are often depicted wearing elaborate robes and jewelry, signifying their wealth and status. They are also frequently shown holding symbols of authority, such as scepters, rings, and divine emblems. These anthropomorphic representations reflect a growing sense of intimacy between the gods and humans. The Anunnaki are portrayed as more relatable figures, capable of interacting with humans and influencing their lives. They're no longer simply distant and abstract beings, but rather active participants in the world. One of the most common motifs associated with the Anunnaki is the winged disc, a symbol of divine power and protection. The winged disc is often depicted above the figures of the Anunnaki, representing their celestial nature and their ability to oversee and protect humanity. This symbol is also associated with the sun god Shamash, Utu, who is seen as a source of justice and righteousness. The winged disc later became a symbol of royal power and was often depicted on royal seals and monuments. The Anunnaki are also frequently depicted in scenes of creation and destruction. They are shown creating humans, building cities, and establishing laws. They are also shown unleashing floods, sending plagues, and destroying their enemies. These depictions reflect the Anunnaki's dual nature as both creators and destroyers, capable of both benevolence and wrath. In Babylonian art, the Anunnaki are often associated with the god Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon. Marduk is depicted as a powerful warrior god who defeated the primordial chaos and established order in the universe. He is often shown holding a spear or a sword, symbolizing his power and his ability to defend Babylon from its enemies. The Anunnaki are often depicted as Marduk's allies, helping him to maintain order and protect the city. In Assyrian art, the Anunnaki are often depicted as winged genies, known as Apkallu. The Apkallu were believed to be wise and benevolent spirits who served as advisors to the kings. They are often shown carrying buckets and cones, which were used in rituals to purify and protect the kings and their palaces. The Apkallu are also depicted as guardians of temples and sacred places, protecting them from evil spirits. The depictions of the Anunnaki in art and iconography reflect the evolving nature of Mesopotamian religion and culture. As societies changed and new ideas emerged, the way the Anunnaki were portrayed also changed. These representations provide valuable insights into the beliefs, values, and worldview of the ancient Mesopotamians. They also demonstrate the enduring power of art to shape and reflect religious and cultural identity. The analysis of Anunnaki iconography requires careful consideration of the historical and cultural context in which these images were created. It is important to understand the symbolic meaning of the various motifs and attributes associated with the Anunnaki, and to consider how these representations may have been interpreted by the people who created and viewed them. The study of Anunnaki art and iconography is an ongoing process, and new discoveries and interpretations continue to shed light on the complexities of Mesopotamian mythology and religion. Fact 13. The Anunnaki and the influence of Mesopotamian mythology on ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks, while developing their own distinct mythology and religious practices, were not isolated. There's considerable evidence of cultural exchange and influence between Mesopotamia and Greece, particularly in the realm of mythology. While direct borrowing is difficult to prove definitively, certain parallels and similarities between the Anunnaki and Greek deities suggest a degree of influence, shaping the Greek understanding of the gods, creation myths, and even concepts of heroism. Examining these potential connections reveals the broader impact of Mesopotamian civilization on the ancient world. The geographical proximity and trade routes between Mesopotamia and Greece facilitated the exchange of ideas, beliefs, and cultural practices. Greek traders, travelers, and scholars would have been exposed to Mesopotamian mythology and religious traditions, and they may have incorporated elements of these traditions into their own. Both In and Zeus were seen as the ultimate authority figures in their respective pantheons, and they were responsible for maintaining order and dispensing justice. The existence of a structured pantheon with specific roles and responsibilities assigned to different deities may have been influenced by the Mesopotamian model. The Greek creation myths also bear some similarities to the Mesopotamian creation myths. The Mesopotamian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, describes how Marduk defeated the primordial chaos and established order in the universe. Similarly, the Greek creation myth, the Theogony, describes how Zeus and the other Olympian gods defeated the Titans and established their rule over the cosmos. Both myths involve a struggle between order and chaos, and both portray the gods as the victors in this struggle. The specific details of the myths differ, but the overall theme of establishing order out of chaos is similar. The Greek myths about heroes and demigods also bear some resemblance to Mesopotamian myths about kings and heroes. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, tells the story of a powerful king who embarks on a quest for immortality. Similarly, the Greek myths about Heracles, Hercules, tell the story of a demigod who performs a series of heroic labors. Both Gilgamesh and Heracles are portrayed as strong, courageous, and resourceful figures who overcome great obstacles. The theme of the hero's journey, with its challenges, triumphs, and ultimate fate, may have been influenced by Mesopotamian literary traditions. Specific deities and mythological figures also show potential connections. The Greek goddess Aphrodite, associated with love and beauty, shares some similarities with the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, Inanna. Both goddesses were associated with fertility, sexuality, and warfare. The Greek god Hermes, associated with messages, commerce, and trickery, shares some similarities with the Mesopotamian god Enki, Ea, associated with wisdom, magic, and water. These parallels are not exact, but they suggest a possible influence of Mesopotamian deities on the development of Greek mythology. However, it's important to note that the influence of Mesopotamian mythology on ancient Greece is a complex and debated topic. Some scholars argue that the similarities between the two mythologies are purely coincidental, arising from common human experiences and archetypes. Others argue that there was a direct and significant influence, with Greek mythology borrowing heavily from Mesopotamian sources. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. While direct borrowing is difficult to prove definitively, the parallels and similarities between the two mythologies suggest that there was some degree of cultural exchange and influence. The extent of this influence remains a topic of ongoing scholarly debate. The study of the influence of Mesopotamian mythology on ancient Greece provides valuable insights into the interconnectedness of ancient cultures and the transmission of ideas across geographical and cultural boundaries. It also underscores the enduring power of mythology to shape human beliefs, values, and artistic expressions. The Anunnaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian mythology, played a role in shaping the cultural landscape of the ancient world, leaving echoes that can still be heard in the myths and legends of ancient Greece. Fact 14. The Anunnaki and the significance of cylinder seals in Mesopotamian society. Cylinder seals, small, engraved cylinders made of stone, metal, or other materials, were ubiquitous objects in ancient Mesopotamia, serving as personal signatures, administrative tools, and powerful symbols of status and belief. These seals often depict scenes related to the Anunnaki, providing valuable insights into how these deities were perceived and integrated into daily life. Examining the imagery on cylinder seals reveals the pervasive influence of the Anunnaki on Mesopotamian society and their connection to concepts of power, authority, and protection. Cylinder seals were used to impress an image onto clay tablets, pottery, and other surfaces. The seal would be rolled across the soft clay, leaving behind a unique and intricate design. Each individual typically owned one or more cylinder seals, which they wore on a string around their neck or wrist. The seals served as a form of identification, allowing individuals to authenticate documents, mark property, and participate in commercial transactions. The designs on cylinder seals varied widely, but they often included images of gods, goddesses, heroes, animals, and mythological creatures. The seals were not simply decorative objects. They were powerful symbols of status, authority, and belief. However, certain motifs and symbols were commonly associated with specific deities. For example, Anu, the sky god, was often depicted with a horned headdress and a flowing beard, symbolizing his wisdom and authority. Enlil, the god of wind and storms, was often depicted with a thunderbolt or a bull, symbolizing his power over the natural world. Enki, the god of wisdom and water, was often depicted with streams of water flowing from his shoulders, symbolizing his control over the life-giving waters of the earth. Cylinder seals also often depict scenes of worship and devotion to the Anunnaki. These scenes show humans offering sacrifices, praying, or performing other rituals in honor of the gods. The seals provide evidence of the importance of religious belief in Mesopotamian society and the desire of individuals to connect with the divine realm. The cylinder seals were not just used for practical purposes. They were also used as amulets to protect against evil spirits and to bring good luck. The images depicted on the seals were believed to have magical powers, and they were thought to ward off danger and to ensure the well-being of the owner. The use of cylinder seals as amulets reflects the Mesopotamian belief in the power of images and the importance of protecting oneself from the unseen forces of the cosmos. The study of cylinder seals provides valuable insights into the artistic, religious, and social practices of ancient Mesopotamia. The seals offer a glimpse into the daily lives of the Mesopotamian people, their beliefs, and their values. They also provide evidence of the pervasive influence of the Anunnaki on Mesopotamian society and their connection to concepts of power, authority, and protection. The intricate designs and the skilled craftsmanship of the cylinder seals demonstrate the artistic achievements of the Mesopotamian civilization and their appreciation for beauty and symbolism. The enduring legacy of the cylinder seals as objects of art, history, and religious significance testifies to the rich and complex cultural heritage of ancient Mesopotamia. Fact 15. The Anunnaki and the Great Flood, the Deluge Myth. The story of a great flood, or deluge, is a recurring motif in many ancient cultures, and the Mesopotamian version, particularly as depicted in the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis epic, is often linked to the Anunnaki. The flood is portrayed as a divine punishment inflicted upon humanity, and the Anunnaki's role in instigating or mitigating it is a complex and multifaceted aspect of their mythology. This narrative offers insights into ancient Mesopotamian beliefs about divine justice, the relationship between gods and humans, and the cyclical nature of creation and destruction. In the Atrahasis epic, the flood is directly attributed to the Anunnaki god Enlil. Enlil, the chief god of the pantheon, becomes increasingly frustrated with the noise and overpopulation of humanity. He finds their constant activity disruptive and decides to reduce their numbers. Initially, he sends plagues and famines to decimate the human population, but Enki, the god of wisdom and crafts, repeatedly intervenes to help humanity survive. Enki, who is often portrayed as a benevolent and compassionate figure, provides humans with advice and strategies to overcome the challenges sent by Enlil. This ongoing conflict between Enlil and Enki highlights the different perspectives within the Anunnaki Council regarding humanity's fate. Enlil represents the more authoritarian and punitive aspect of the divine, while Enki represents the more protective and nurturing aspect. Frustrated by his failed attempts to control humanity through plagues and famines, Enlil eventually decides to unleash a great flood to wipe them out entirely. He convinces the other Anunnaki to swear an oath to keep the impending flood a secret from humanity. However, Enki, unwilling to see humanity destroyed, finds a way to warn Atrahasis, also known as Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh, a pious and righteous king. Enki instructs Atrahasis to build an ark, a large boat that will protect him, his family, and a selection of animals from the flood. Atrahasis follows Enki's instructions and gathers the necessary materials to build the ark. He loads the ark with his family, animals, and provisions, and seals it shut just before the flood begins. The flood itself is described as a cataclysmic event, with torrential rains and overflowing rivers inundating the entire land. The Anunnaki, witnessing the devastation, are said to be terrified by the magnitude of the destruction. They regret their decision to unleash the flood and mourn the loss of humanity. The flood lasts for 7 days and nights. Enki defends his actions, arguing that humanity deserved a chance to survive and that Enlil's punishment was too severe. To prevent future overpopulation and the need for such drastic measures, Enki proposes a series of measures to control human reproduction, including the introduction of barren women, the creation of demons to snatch away newborns, and the establishment of different social classes. These measures are intended to maintain a balance between the human population and the resources available. The story of the flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh is similar to the Atrahasis epic, but with some variations. In the Gilgamesh version, Utnapishtim recounts the story of the flood to Gilgamesh, explaining how he survived the cataclysm. The god's motivations for sending the flood are also slightly different in the Gilgamesh version, with the focus being more on the gods' capriciousness and their annoyance with human behavior. The deluge myth, as it relates to the Anunnaki, raises several important questions about their nature and their relationship with humanity. Was the flood a just punishment for human wickedness, or was it an act of divine capriciousness? Did the Anunnaki have the right to decide the fate of humanity? And what does the story of the flood tell us about the ancient Mesopotamian worldview? The interpretation of the flood myth has varied over time and across different cultures. Some see it as a literal account of a historical event, while others view it as a symbolic representation of the cyclical nature of creation and destruction. Regardless of how it is interpreted, the story of the flood remains a powerful and enduring symbol of divine judgment, human resilience, and the enduring quest for survival. The Anunnaki's role in this story highlights their complex and multifaceted nature, portraying them as both creators and destroyers, benevolent protectors and vengeful punishers. Their actions and motivations continue to be debated and reinterpreted, reflecting the ongoing human fascination with their place in the cosmos and their relationship with the divine. Fact 16. The Anunnaki Legacy. Influence on later religions and mythologies. The Anunnaki, despite their decline in prominence within Mesopotamian religion towards the end of its independent existence, left a significant and lasting legacy that can be traced in later religions and mythologies. While direct connections can be debated, certain themes, motifs, and figures in subsequent religious traditions appear to echo aspects of the Anunnaki mythology, suggesting a degree of cultural transmission and adaptation. Exploring these potential influences provides a broader understanding of the Anunnaki's impact on the development of religious thought. One of the most prominent examples of potential Anunnaki influence is the story of the Great Flood, which, as previously discussed, is a central element of Mesopotamian mythology. This narrative, featuring a divine decision to wipe out humanity and the survival of a chosen individual and his family in an ark, finds parallels in the biblical story of Noah's Ark. While the details of the two stories differ, the overall theme of divine judgment and the preservation of life through a flood is strikingly similar. Some scholars argue that the biblical flood narrative was directly influenced by the Mesopotamian flood myths, transmitted through cultural exchange and adaptation. The name Noah is even suggested by some to be derived from Nuh, a figure in Islamic tradition who is considered a prophet and a descendant of Adam, further linking back to Mesopotamian roots through shared ancestral narratives. Another area of potential influence is the concept of divine kingship. In Mesopotamian mythology, kings were seen as divinely appointed rulers, chosen by the Annunaki to govern on their behalf. This idea of divine kingship was also prevalent in ancient Egypt, where pharaohs were considered to be gods on earth. While the specific details of divine kingship differed in Mesopotamia and Egypt, the underlying concept of a ruler with divine authority is similar. The idea of a king being divinely appointed is traceable through history, even into European monarchies where the concept of divine right of kings persisted for centuries. The echoes of the Anunnaki's influence in establishing earthly rule resonate in these later interpretations. The concept of a hierarchical pantheon of gods, with a chief god at the head, is another element that appears in both Mesopotamian mythology and later religions. In Mesopotamia, an Anu was the chief of the Anunnaki, the sky god and the ultimate source of authority. Similarly, in Greek mythology, Zeus was the king of the gods, ruling from Mount Olympus. While the specific attributes and roles of these gods differed, the overall structure of a hierarchical pantheon is similar. The presence of subordinate deities with specific roles and responsibilities, all under the authority of a supreme god, seems to have roots that may extend back to the Mesopotamian system of gods. The way these roles were defined and the relationships between the deities might have influenced later polytheistic religions. The symbols and motifs associated with the Anunnaki also appear in later art and iconography. The winged disc, for example, which was a symbol of divine power and protection in Mesopotamia, appears in various forms in other ancient cultures, including Egypt and Persia. The symbol was often associated with royal power and divine authority, suggesting a possible transmission of its meaning and significance. The horned headdress, another symbol of divinity in Mesopotamia, it is thus important to avoid making definitive claims of direct influence without sufficient evidence. The Anunnaki legacy, therefore, should be understood as a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. While direct connections to later religions and mythologies may be difficult to prove definitively, the presence of recurring themes, motifs, and figures suggests a degree of cultural transmission and adaptation. The Anunnaki mythology, as a foundational element of Mesopotamian civilization, played a significant role in shaping the religious and cultural landscape of the ancient world, leaving echoes that can still be heard in later traditions. Understanding this legacy requires a nuanced approach, considering both the similarities and differences between Mesopotamian mythology and later religions, and acknowledging the complexities of cultural transmission. Fact 17. The Anunnaki and the evolution of Mesopotamian religious practices over time. The Anunnaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian religion, were not static entities. Their roles, attributes, and the ways in which they were worshipped evolved significantly over the centuries, reflecting changes in Mesopotamian society, political structures, and cultural influences. Examining the evolution of Mesopotamian religious practices provides a nuanced understanding of the Anunnaki's changing significance and the adaptability of religious belief. Early Sumerian religious practices, dating back to the 4th millennium BCE, focused on a relatively localized pantheon of deities, each associated with a specific city-state. The Anunnaki, in this early period, were primarily seen as the rulers of the cosmos and the source of all authority. Each city had its own patron deity, who was believed to protect the city and its inhabitants. The temples dedicated to these deities were centers of religious, economic, and political power. The priests and priestesses who serve in these temples played a crucial role in mediating between the gods and the people. The religious rituals performed in these temples were intended to appease the gods, ensure the fertility of the land, and maintain the cosmic order. As Mesopotamian civilization developed, the pantheon of deities became more standardized, and certain deities gained prominence over others. The Anunnaki, as a group, continued to be revered, but their individual roles and attributes became more clearly defined. For example, Anu remained the sky god and the chief of the Anunnaki, but his influence gradually diminished as other deities, such as Enlil and Enki, gained prominence. Enlil, the god of wind and storms, became the dominant deity in the northern part of Mesopotamia, while Enki, the god of wisdom and water, became the dominant deity in the southern part of Mesopotamia. The rise of the Akkadian Empire in the 24th century BCE led to further changes in Mesopotamian religious practices. The Akkadian rulers adopted the Sumerian pantheon, but also introduced their own deities. Ishtar, the Akkadian goddess of love and war, became one of the most important deities in Mesopotamia, and her cult spread throughout the region. The Akkadian rulers also promoted the worship of their own personal deities, further diversifying the Mesopotamian pantheon. The Babylonian period, beginning in the 19th century BCE, marked a significant turning point in Mesopotamian religious history. The Babylonian rulers elevated Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, to the position of supreme god. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, describes how Marduk defeated the primordial chaos and established order in the universe. Marduk's rise to prominence reflected the growing political power of Babylon and the Babylonian rulers' desire to legitimize their authority. The other Anunnaki deities were incorporated into Marduk's court, becoming his advisors and assistants. The Assyrian period, beginning in the 14th century BCE, saw the rise of the god Ashur as the supreme deity. Ashur was the patron deity of the city of Ashur, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian rulers promoted the worship of Ashur throughout their empire, and they built magnificent temples in his honor. The other Anunnaki deities were still revered, but they were subordinate to Ashur. The Assyrian religious practices emphasized the power and might of the Assyrian Empire and its rulers. The Neo-Babylonian period, beginning in the 7th century BCE, saw a resurgence of Babylonian culture and religion. The Babylonian rulers rebuilt the temples of Marduk and the other Babylonian deities, and they restored the ancient religious rituals. The Neo-Babylonian period marked a final flourishing of Mesopotamian religious traditions before the region was conquered by the Persians in the 6th century BCE. Over time, Mesopotamian religious practices became more complex. The Anunnaki, as central figures in Mesopotamian religion, were not immune to these changes. Their roles, attributes, and the ways in which they were worshipped evolved over time, reflecting the dynamic nature of Mesopotamian civilization. Fact 18. The Anunnaki and the role of the priest/priestess in Mesopotamian society. The priests and priestesses held a position of immense influence and authority, serving as intermediaries between the human and divine realms and playing a crucial role in maintaining social, political, and economic stability. Their connection to the Anunnaki was fundamental to their authority, as they were believed to be the interpreters of the gods' will and the caretakers of their earthly residences. Examining their roles illuminates the vital connection between the Anunnaki and the daily lives of Mesopotamians. In Mesopotamian society, priests and priestesses were not simply religious figures. They were also scholars, administrators, and advisors to the rulers. They were responsible for performing religious rituals, interpreting dreams, and divining the future. They also managed the temples, which were centers of economic activity, and oversaw the distribution of resources. Their deep understanding of religious texts, rituals, and traditions gave them considerable power and influence in society. The process of becoming a priest or priestess varied, depending on the time period and the city. In some cases, priesthood was hereditary, with positions passed down from father to son. In other cases, individuals were chosen for their piety, intelligence, or skill. The training of priests and priestesses was rigorous and demanding. They had to learn to read and write cuneiform, study religious texts, and master the complex rituals and ceremonies. They also had to learn about medicine, astronomy, and other sciences, as these subjects were considered important for understanding the divine order. The priests and priestesses were responsible for performing a wide range of religious rituals. These rituals included daily offerings to the gods, sacrifices of animals and other goods, and elaborate ceremonies to celebrate festivals and commemorate important events. The rituals were believed to appease the gods, ensure the fertility of the land, and maintain the cosmic order. The priests and priestesses also played a role in healing the sick. They believed that sickness was often caused by the anger of the gods, and they would perform rituals and offer prayers to appease the deities and restore health. They also used herbal remedies and other medical techniques to treat illnesses. The temples were not just places of worship, they were also centers of economic activity. The temples owned vast tracts of land and controlled the production and distribution of goods. The priests and priestesses managed these resources and oversaw the economic activities of the surrounding community. They also collected taxes and tribute, which were used to support the temples and to fund public works projects. The priests and priestesses were also responsible for maintaining the temples and their surroundings. They oversaw the construction and repair of temples, and they ensured that the temples were clean and well maintained. They also managed the temple staff, which included scribes, musicians, artisans, and laborers. The connection between the priests/priestesses and the Anunnaki was profound. They believed they were chosen by the Anunnaki to serve as their representatives on Earth. They studied the ancient texts and performed the rituals passed down through generations, believing these were dictated by the Anunnaki themselves. Their authority derived directly from their perceived connection to the divine realm. This connection allowed them to interpret omens, deliver prophecies, and mediate between the human world and the world of the gods. Over time, the role of the priests and priestesses changed, reflecting the evolving nature of Mesopotamian society. In some periods, they held great political power, influencing the decisions of the rulers. In other periods, their power was more limited, and they were subject to the authority of kings. However, throughout Mesopotamian history, the priests and priestesses remained a vital part of society, providing religious guidance, administering economic resources, and maintaining the cultural traditions of the Mesopotamia. However, throughout Mesopotamian history, the priests in Fact 19, the Anunnaki, and the significance of dreams and divination. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams and divination were considered crucial methods of communication with the divine realm, particularly with the Anunnaki. These practices provided insights into the will of the gods, offered warnings about impending dangers, and guided important decisions in both personal and political life. Exploring the role of dreams and divination in Mesopotamian society reveals the deep-seated belief in the Anunnaki's active involvement in human affairs and the various techniques used to decipher their messages. Dreams were seen as a direct channel through which the Anunnaki could communicate with humans. They were not considered random or meaningless occurrences, but rather potent messages that required careful interpretation. The Mesopotamians believed that the soul could travel during sleep and encounter divine beings or receive glimpses of the future. The interpretation of dreams was a specialized skill practiced by trained dream interpreters who could decipher the symbolic meaning of dream images and provide guidance based on their analysis. Royal dreams were considered particularly significant, as they were believed to reflect the Anunnaki's favor or displeasure with the king and his reign. A favorable dream could be interpreted as a sign of divine support for the king's policies, while a negative dream could be a warning of impending disaster. Dream interpreters played an important role in advising the king and helping him make decisions that would please the gods. The Epic of Gilgamesh features several significant dreams that foreshadow future events and provide guidance to the hero. These dreams highlight the importance of dreams in Mesopotamian culture and their role in shaping human destiny. Divination, the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown through supernatural means, was another important way of communicating with the Anunnaki. Various methods of divination were practiced in Mesopotamia, including hepatoscopy, examining the liver of sacrificed animals, astrology, studying the movements of the celestial bodies, and cleromancy, casting lots. Each of these methods was believed to provide insights into the will of the gods and to reveal information about the future. Hepatoscopy the examination of the liver, was considered one of the most reliable methods of divination. The liver was believed to be the seat of the soul, and its appearance was thought to reflect the intentions of the gods. Specially trained priests, known as baru, would carefully examine the liver of a sacrificed animal, looking for signs of disease, blemishes, or unusual formations. These signs were then interpreted according to established rules and traditions, providing insights into the future or the will of the gods. Astrology, the study of the movements of the celestial bodies, was also an important method of divination. The Mesopotamians believed that the positions of the planets and stars could influence human affairs. Astrologers would study the sky and create horoscopes, which were charts that mapped the positions of the celestial bodies at a particular time. These horoscopes were then used to predict the future or to provide guidance on important decisions. The Anunnaki were associated with the celestial bodies, and their movements were believed to reflect the Anunnaki's will. Cleromancy, the casting of lots, was a simpler method of divination that could be used to answer yes or no questions. Lots were typically small objects, such as stones or sticks, that were marked with different symbols. These objects were then cast or drawn randomly, and the resulting combination of symbols was interpreted to provide an answer. While cleromancy was a simpler method than hepatoscopy or astrology, it was still seen as a way to communicate with the Anunnaki and to gain insights into the divine will. The practice of divination was closely linked to the Anunnaki temples. Temples served as centers of religious and intellectual activity, and priests and priestesses played a crucial role in interpreting dreams, performing divination rituals, and communicating with the gods. The temples also housed libraries of texts that contain instructions for performing divination rituals and interpreting dream symbols. The belief in the significance of dreams and divination highlights the Mesopotamian worldview, which emphasized the active involvement of the Anunnaki in human affairs. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods were not distant and aloof beings, but rather active participants in the world who could be influenced through prayer, sacrifice, and divination. Understanding the role of dreams and divination is essential for comprehending the Mesopotamian understanding of the relationship between gods and humanity. Fact 20. The Anunnaki and their association with specific celestial objects and constellations. In Mesopotamian astronomy and astrology, the Anunnaki were closely associated with specific celestial objects, constellations, and astronomical phenomena. These associations reveal the Mesopotamian understanding of the cosmos and their belief that the Anunnaki played an active. The movements of these objects were seen as messages from the gods, providing insights into their intentions and the future of humanity. An Anu, the sky god and the chief of the Anunnaki, was associated with the celestial sphere as a whole. He was seen as the ruler of the heavens, and his presence was felt throughout the cosmos. Certain constellations and stars were also specifically linked to one, representing his power and authority. Enlil, the god of wind and storms, was associated with the planet Jupiter. Jupiter was the largest and brightest planet in the sky, and it was seen as a symbol of Enlil's power and authority. The Mesopotamians believed that the movements of Jupiter could influence weather patterns, agricultural yields, and political events. Enki, the god of wisdom and water, was associated with the constellation Aquarius. Aquarius is a constellation that depicts a man pouring water from a jar, symbolizing Enki's control over the life-giving waters of the earth. The Mesopotamians believed that the position of Aquarius in the sky could influence the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Ishtar, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, was associated with the planet Venus. Venus is the brightest object in the night sky after the moon, and it was seen as a symbol of Ishtar's beauty and power. The Mesopotamians believed that the movements of Venus could influence human emotions, relationships, and warfare. Shamash, the sun god, was associated with the sun itself. The sun was seen as a source of light, warmth, and life, and Shamash was revered as a powerful and benevolent deity. The Mesopotamians believed that the sun's movements across the sky could influence the seasons, the growth of crops, and the health of humans. Sin, Nana, the moon god, was associated with the moon itself. The moon was seen as a source of mystery and magic, and Sin was revered as a wise and powerful deity. The Mesopotamians believed that the moon's cycles could influence tides, fertility, and the passage of time. The Mesopotamian zodiac, which was divided into 12 signs, was also associated with the Anunnaki. Each sign of a zodiac was linked to a specific constellation and a specific deity. The zodiac was used for astrological predictions, and the position of the planets in the zodiac was believed to influence the lives of individuals. The association of the Anunnaki with specific celestial objects and constellations highlights the Mesopotamian belief that the gods were intimately involved in the workings of the cosmos. The Mesopotamians believed that by studying the movements of the heavens, they could gain insights into the will of the gods and the future of humanity. The development of Mesopotamian astronomy and astrology was thus closely linked to religious belief and the desire to understand the divine order. The study of the Mesopotamian association of the Anunnaki with celestial objects provides valuable insights into their worldview and their understanding of the relationship between gods, humans, and the cosmos. Fact 21. The Anunnaki and the concept of divine retribution, sickness, famine, and natural disasters as punishment. In Mesopotamian belief, the Anunnaki weren't solely benevolent providers. They also wielded the power of divine retribution. Sickness, famine, and natural disasters were often interpreted as punishments inflicted by the Anunnaki upon humanity for perceived transgressions, disrespect, or a failure to maintain the proper cosmic order. Examining this aspect of Anunnaki mythology reveals a complex understanding of divine justice and the delicate balance between human behavior and the well-being of society. The Mesopotamians believed that the Anunnaki maintained a cosmic order, that governed all aspects of existence, from the movement of the stars to the fertility of the land. Humans were expected to live in accordance with this order, honoring the gods and upholding the laws of society. When humans violated this order, Whether through intentional wrongdoing or unintentional neglect, the Anunnaki could respond with divine retribution. This retribution could take many forms, including sickness, famine, natural disasters, and even military defeat. Sickness was often seen as a direct punishment from the Anunnaki. Specific deities were associated with specific diseases, and individuals who contracted these diseases were believed to have offended the corresponding god or goddess. For example, the goddess Gula, also known as Ninkarak, was associated with healing and medicine, but she could also inflict sickness upon those who angered her. In order to appease the angry deity and cure, the goddess Ashnan was associated with grain and sustenance, and her favor was essential for ensuring a bountiful harvest. If Ashnan was angered, she could withdraw her blessings, leading to famine and starvation. In times of famine, communities would often organize religious ceremonies, offer sacrifices, and repent for their sins in an attempt to appease the gods and restore the fertility of the land. Natural disasters, such as floods, earthquakes, and storms, were also interpreted as acts of divine retribution. The Anunnaki were believed to control the forces of nature, and they could unleash these forces upon humanity to punish them for their wrongdoing. The story of the Great Flood, as previously discussed, is a prime example of a natural disaster used as a form of divine retribution. In this myth, the Anunnaki, led by Enlil, decided to wipe out humanity because they were too noisy and disruptive. The flood was seen as a just punishment for human wickedness, although Enki intervened to save a select few who were deemed worthy. Military defeat was also seen as a sign of divine displeasure. The Anunnaki were believed to protect their chosen cities and rulers, and if a city was conquered or a king was overthrown, it was often interpreted as a sign that the gods had withdrawn their favor. In such cases, the conquered people would often attribute their defeat to their own sins or to the anger of their patron deity. They might also attribute their defeat to the superior power of the gods of the conquering city. The belief in divine retribution had a profound impact on Mesopotamian society. It encouraged people to adhere to religious norms, obey the laws, and maintain a proper relationship with the gods. It also provided a framework for understanding and coping with suffering and misfortune. However, the concept of divine retribution could also lead to fear, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness. People might worry that they were unknowingly offending the gods and that they could be punished for their transgressions. The interpretation of events as divine retribution also raised questions about the nature of divine justice. Why did the gods punish innocent people along with the guilty? Why did they allow suffering to occur even when people were trying to do their best to honor them? These questions were often debated by Mesopotamian theologians and scholars, and they led to a variety of different interpretations of the Anunnaki's motives and actions. The concept of divine retribution highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of the Anunnaki in Mesopotamian mythology. They were not simply benevolent creators, but also powerful and demanding rulers who could inflict punishment upon those who violated their laws or offended their sensibilities. Understanding this aspect of Anunnaki mythology is essential for comprehending the Mesopotamian worldview and their understanding of the relationship between gods and humanity. Fact 22: the Anunnaki and the creation of humanity. One of the most debated and controversial aspects of the Anunnaki mythology revolves around their alleged role in the creation of humanity. While interpretations vary widely, the prevalent narrative, particularly within alternative history and ancient astronaut theories, suggests the Anunnaki genetically engineered humans for specific purposes, primarily as a labor force. This interpretation draws heavily from Sumerian texts, particularly the Atrahasis epic and the Enki and Ninhursag myth, which describe the creation of humans to relieve the gods of their arduous tasks. The traditional Sumerian understanding of human origins is more nuanced than the simplified version often presented in modern interpretations. The Atrahasis epic describes a situation where the Igigi, the lower-ranking gods, rebelled against their laborious duties. They were tasked with digging canals and performing other physically demanding tasks, and they eventually grew weary of their servitude. In response to this rebellion, the Anunnaki, the higher-ranking gods, decided to create a new being to take over these tasks. This new being was humanity. The Anunnaki goddess Nama, the mother goddess, suggested creating humans from clay and the essence of a slain god, Wiyala. This divine essence was believed to imbue humans with intelligence and a connection to the divine. The process was overseen by Enki, the god of wisdom and crafts, and Ninhursag, the goddess of fertility and creation. Together, they molded the clay and mixed it with the blood of Wiyala, creating the first humans. These humans were initially created to serve the gods, performing the tasks that the Igigi had rebelled against. Enlil, the chief god, became annoyed by the constant commotion and sought to reduce the human population through various means, including plagues, famines, and droughts. Enki, however, sympathized with humanity and intervened to help them survive these calamities. He provided them with advice and knowledge to overcome the challenges sent by Enlil. This conflict between Enlil and Enki highlights the complex and ambivalent relationship between the gods and humanity. Enlil represents the more authoritarian and demanding aspect of the divine, while Enki represents the more compassionate and benevolent aspect. The alternative interpretations of these texts often emphasize the genetic engineering aspect of human creation. Proponents of this view argue that the Sumerian texts describe a process that is analogous to modern genetic engineering techniques. They suggest that the Anunnaki manipulated the DNA of existing hominids to create a new species that was capable of performing the tasks they desired. This interpretation is based on the idea that the clay and blood mentioned in the texts are metaphors for genetic material. They also point to the fact that the Sumerians had a sophisticated understanding of agriculture and animal husbandry, suggesting that they may have also had some knowledge of genetics. However, this interpretation is controversial and is not supported by mainstream scientific or historical scholarship. Critics argue that the Sumerian texts should be interpreted within their historical and cultural context, rather than being read as literal accounts of genetic engineering. They argue that the language and symbolism used in the texts are metaphorical and should not be taken as evidence of advanced technology. Furthermore, the Anunnaki's motivations are often debated. Some theories propose they sought gold for atmospheric repair, a narrative popularized by Zecharia Sitchin, requiring a workforce to extract it. Others suggest they were experimenting with creating a hybrid species for reasons unknown. These theories often interpret Sumerian myths as historical accounts of extraterrestrial intervention, suggesting that the Anunnaki were advanced beings from another planet who visited Earth and interacted with early humans. The impact of this alleged intervention is seen as having accelerated human evolution and development, leading to the rapid advancement of civilization. However, it's crucial to acknowledge that these interpretations are largely based on speculation and extrapolation from ancient texts. The academic community generally views these claims as pseudoscientific and lacking empirical evidence. The mainstream understanding of human origins is based on evolutionary biology and anthropology, which posits that humans evolved naturally over millions of years through a process of natural selection. While the Sumerian texts provide valuable insights into the beliefs and worldview of ancient Mesopotamians, they should not be interpreted as literal accounts of human origins. The debate surrounding